Okay, a quadratic trinomial will always, always, always factor into two binomials. So it's going to factor into two sets of parentheses, always, where you're going to have a term here and here, that makes it a binomial, and a term here and here, okay? We've got to figure out what they are. Here's the deal. Since this is an x squared, this first term in each set of parentheses is just going to be the x without the power of 2. Now we need to figure out what goes here and here, okay? To do that, this is the process that you follow. You are looking for two numbers. Those two numbers have to multiply to give you C, and at the same time, those numbers need to add to give you B. Okay, so the numbers that are going to go here in our parentheses are the same numbers that will multiply to give you C and add to give you B. C here is 4. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 4. And at the same time, those two numbers are going to add to give us B. That's why it's important that you know what A, B, and C are. So our green sheet will help us with that. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 4. So if we go to our 4 list, 1 times 4 is 4. But we also need the two numbers to add to give us 5. So you have to ask yourself, I know because it's underneath here that 1 times 4 equals 4, but is 1 plus 4 equal to 5? And the answer is yes, it is. And so our numbers here are going to be 4 and 1. 4 times 1 equals 4, and 4 plus 1 equals 5. So the numbers that go over here in our parentheses are the numbers 4 and 1. They're both positive, so we need to put a plus sign in there. So it's going to be plus 4 and plus 1. Or you can write plus 1 and plus 4. The order doesn't matter. This is our answer. What we just found was we found two expressions, binomial expressions, that when you multiply them together, you would get this. We were given the answer, we found the problem. Remember that when we multiply binomials together, depending on your way to multiply them, you're either going to use the distributive property, which is the way that I would do it. You would distribute the x, then you would distribute the 4, or some of you refer to that as the FOIL method, or some of you, once you learn the box method, you like the box method better. But if I was to multiply this back out, I'd have x times x, which is x squared, x times 1, which is positive 1x, 4 times x, which is positive 4x, and 4 times 1, which is 4. We would combine our like terms here, and we would end up with x squared plus 5x plus 4. This is why we spent so much time multiplying these out and getting these answers, because we knew eventually we were going to go the other direction. All right, number 2, x squared plus 9x plus 14. So once again, since this is a trinomial with a power of 2, this is going to factor into two sets of parentheses, where my first term is going to be whatever letter that is. Sometimes that letter isn't x, so if it was b squared, this would be a b and a b. Then we're over here and we're looking for two numbers, and those two numbers need to do two things at the same time. They need to multiply to give me c, and at the same time they need to add to give me b. C over here is 14, and b over here is 9. So I want two numbers that multiply to give me 14. So I'm going to go to my sheet and I'm going to look under 14. Here are my factors of 14. 1 times 14 is 14. So that follows the first rule. 1 times 14 would give me 14. But 1 plus 14 is 15, not 9. So that's not the right answer. So going on to the next one in the list, 2 times 7. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 plus 7 is 9. We got our answers, 7 and 2. So those are the numbers that are going to come over here and go in the parentheses, 2 and 7. So if you were to multiply this back out, and it's a great way to check it, you can multiply here, and then combine all your like terms. All right, so let's write down how to factor a trinomial, writing using our steps. So how to factor a trinomial, and it's important that we have a is equal to 1. So first of all, your very first question you're going to ask yourself is a equal to 1? And that's not always going to be the case. But for today, that is going to be the case. It's going to always be yes. If it was a no, you would try GCF first. After you make sure a is equal to 1, you are going to identify C and B to find two numbers which multiply to equal C and add to equal B. And then finally, you're going to complete the parentheses. Where you're going to have your variable, and then those two numbers you just found go in the parentheses. All right, third example. And if I'm going too fast, pause it and write and come back. I can't make these videos very long or they take forever to upload. All right, so there is my problem. X to the second power minus 3x minus 18. So my parentheses, X and X. I'm looking for two numbers. Those two numbers are going to multiply to equal C, and those same two numbers are going to add to give me B. So C here is negative 18. You do have to carry the symbol with it, and B is negative 3. So I'm going to go to my green sheet, and I'm going to look for two numbers that multiply to give me 18. Here's my list for 18. Now, when I multiply a positive times a positive, and this is where knowing your integer rules, that means knowing how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide positive and negative numbers, is going to haunt you if you don't know it. So if I multiply a positive times a positive, that's going to give me a positive 1. Those are the two examples we've already done. Those are super easy. But I want to multiply and get a negative 18. So therefore, either my 1 or my 18 needs to be negative. Okay, so let's try. I'm going to use pencil here and throw this in here. So let's say I did negative 1 times 18. That would equal negative 18. However, negative 1 plus 18 is not negative 3. Again, if you don't know your rules for adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, this is going to take a long time for you because you're going to have to pick up your calculator constantly. But I know my integers and I can do this mental math, and I know this is equal to 17, so that's not the right answer. So I'm going to go on to the next list. Erase all those. Go to the next set of numbers under 18, which is 2 and 9. So I'm going to try negative 2 and positive 9. Negative 2 and positive 9. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. Negative 2 plus 9 is 7. That's not right. All right, next two lists, 3 and 6. So negative 3 and 6, negative 3 and 6. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. Negative 3 plus 6 is positive 3. Oh, so close. It's just the sign that's wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these signs around, and I'm going to make the 3 positive and the 6 negative. Now, 3 times the negative 6 is still negative 18. Doesn't matter which one is negative, just one of them has to be negative. And then 3 plus negative 6 is negative 3. I got my numbers. It's positive 3 and negative 6. So over here, I'm going to fill in positive 3 and negative 6. And then if I was to multiply that out, I would do x times x and x times negative 6, and then 3 times x and 3 times negative 6. Combine my like terms, and there we go. And I'm going to start a different video, otherwise, like I said, these are going to take forever to upload.